never get sick of that sound. Look, just before we got into part 2, I wanted to give a little bit of a context around the Tasmanian deer situation as I see it, and kind of a bit of history on how it led up to today. I mean, just first things first, Tasmania only has one species of game deer in it, and that's fallow deer. They were introduced in about the 1800s, and what they've evolved to become is a pretty well-renowned, extremely highly valued fallow deer herd, and like one of the better ones genetically that you'd get in the southern hemisphere, that's for sure. But in terms of local Tasmanians, a very highly prized herd, so much so that, you know, their game status has probably been stronger than any other species of game, introduced game, throughout the rest of Australia, I'd say. You can challenge me if you think I'm wrong, but that's just my point of view on all of that. Now, look, Tasmania is an incredibly beautiful place. I loved exploring it, and there's just so much incredible bush. Not all of it's fallow deer habitat, that's for sure. I mean, the major centre of fallow deer herd is in the Central Highlands of Tasmania, which is a hell of a lot of space. Very cool, tussocky, slightly mountainous, large parts agricultural, large parts native Tasmanian bush. That's where the major population centre has always been, the traditional range, so to speak. Lots of population out towards the east of Tassie too, though. Really interesting that, like, most of them out of the highlands that I saw, the vast majority were black fallow. That was their major genetic strain. I thought that was really cool. You'll also get lots of little, I don't know, pilot populations around the place, whether it's been through accidental farm release or a dodgy release or something like that. But they're around, and you might not hear about them because the people who do know about them probably guard them very jealously. And that's one thing that I picked up big time from the Tasmanian hunting community, is that it's cagey as anything, extremely protective. In some ways I understand where that's coming from. In other ways I think it probably needs to change pretty soon if deer hunting in Tasmania is going to survive in its current form. But what is Tasmania's deer hunting in its current form? Like, about 30 years ago, roughly 30 years ago, Tasmania got pretty damn serious about managing this resource, and it was definitely treated as a resource then. The focus was on maintaining that quality, and we're particularly talking about antler growth and things like that. They introduced a tag system, and this was informed very much around a US style hunting season. Funnily enough, like, there was a consultant brought in from the United States to help them develop this. So back then, as you do now, you get a tag for your buck. Tasmanians call them stags. When in Rome, I guess. I'm not even going to go there. But you would also get a tag for a doe. That's 2 deer a year. It's not much, and we're talking about pretty narrow windows with which to take them. As to, like, you know, the stag, buck, whatever you want to call it, the antlered male deer season in Tasmania this year that I went down for only lasted 5 weeks and finished in the first week of April. So everything that you've seen in part 1, or that you're about to see in this video, was out of stag season. It's because they're stopping stags being hunted in the lead up to the rut. They want to let them be uninhibited during the rut. And up until very recently too, the does had their own season, and it was pretty narrow as well. There would be a little allowance for them to be hunted at the same time as male deer. They'd have a break for the rut, and then they'd have another time closing into winter, about the same time of year right now, May to June, where you could shoot does. Things evolved, because the main thing in terms of keeping a deer population in check is you must take down the female population. That is the way to control deer numbers. At the same time, if hunters in Tasmania or anywhere in the world want to be keeping ownership of their deer and keeping the management in their hands, they need to be taking down that female population. So in recent years in Tassie, there's been a greater allowance, like, oh, instead of just 1 doe tag, it's like, oh, 2 doe tags. And they're like, oh, if you want to, you can sacrifice your buck tag, stag tag, and increase it to 3 doe tags for the year. So all of a sudden, like, you know, that's enough deer to start, you know, making a difference in the Tasmanian family's life. You know, deer are properly substituted as a wild game in their food source, all that kind of thing. Leading up to the last couple of years, finally, and I do agree with this decision, is that they've allowed an open slather season on does with no limit whatsoever from about March all the way through to the end of November. That's allowing that time for breeding and fawning. Anyway, without getting into that too much, that's the context. You know, take as many non-antlered deer as you want, because that does include yearlings. In this video, you'll see me take a yearling, and it was a male. At the time, it just looked like a deer without antlers, and that's all you need to take one. So I was there to see the rut and to harvest some animals in an antlerless season. The last thing I want to add, though, is access. Now, again, traditionally, most deer hunting access in Tasmania has been on private property, and there's been some famous private properties over the years that had their reputation for bigger animals or a lot of the centres of the populations hanging around them. That's been restricted for a lot of Tasmanian hunters and shooters because, you know, they couldn't get onto that access. That being said, in more recent years, they've been really opening up some larger tracts of public land. Now, I don't think the system as it stands is perfect. It's evolving. But they've been balloting off not just forestry areas, but conservation areas. That's stuff that's run by Parks Tasmania. Now, that's pretty damn progressive in terms of what we're after, in terms of hunters managing the game and taking responsibility for that resource, and that resource not being wasted. Now, when I was down there, I'm very fortunate that my mate was able to get me some access onto some epic private land to go hunting. I'm so grateful for that, brother. Good on you. I couldn't help but when I turned up, but also just stick my nose into some public land. Majority of the public land at that time, when I was there, was under the good stuff was under a ballot, you know, and that's fair enough because there's a lot of people who want the same thing. But there's timber production land, that's like our version of state forest, which is a bit of a confusing system, but has allocated designated hunting zones and areas. It's a system that hopefully gets expanded a bit more. And, you know, I found deer sign when I was there. I didn't have that much time. I would have liked to spend a little bit more time there. I saw some locals scoping out my car at the time and I wasn't too crash hot and sticking around. But the point is, with, you know, less than 12 hours in one place, snooping around, deciding to, just as I would approach any public land to start hunting, I found fallow sign. And that was really exciting. That was really cool. The other side to that is expanding access. We've had a pretty good system of that in New South Wales. It's taken its years to evolve into something that's really workable, but one of the best public land hunting opportunities in the world is the R-licence system in New South Wales state forests. That's my bread and butter, and I love it. Look at Victoria. One of the ultimate access opportunities in the world to hunt one of the greatest game species in the world, being sambar deer. Tasmania is next. It'll take a little bit of a culture shift in some ways for people to get used to a new licensing system if that's what it takes, but all I can say is Tasmania needs more hunting access, and a lot of that access opportunity is kind of already there. Just the legislation's not keeping up with it, and there's a lot of things that they're not very specific about. So I'm really hoping in the next few years that that's what the changes are going to be, and I want to be part of promoting them. I'll definitely be part of hunting them. Anyway, guys, enjoy part 2. So I've put up a couple of does before in this timber country. That's mine. I was heading back. Just saw a gorgeous like literally they could pop up everywhere at the moment. He's going for it. Yes. Fuck yes. Meow.
feel a bit silly, but I had to get up and just go, but I thought, oh, he skipped. What he'd done is he'd done a full circle around me. That's happened to me quite a few times in deer hunting. And it's because he couldn't smell me from there, so he thought if he does a full loop round, he could smell me from the other side. Of course, I get up and start walking around. That'll be one very educated deer in the future, I think. A little bit soggy here, but I'm going to use this opportunity when the hunting time's a bit down to shift locations and start a new camp in another cool location. I'm in some pretty thick country. It's just really hard to move through here quietly. There's really soft jungly stuff now. I'm out of the wattles, thank goodness. And I was thinking, geez, I'm just playing the most low percentage game here. There's nothing happening. And then all of a sudden, one just opens up right up on top of that hill. That I can see. Another cracker experience. Can't believe how close he got. 8 meters, I think. 8 meters. Very small framed animal. Not a big animal. Not just because he's young, but yeah, that's fine. The wind's travelling downhill, that's good. We've been travelling all through here. It starts to open out a little bit here, so I'm on my guard. Just up there. It's a bench. They have this big echo chamber for croaks. It's comfortable, but they're very well protected and hidden. Don't think I'll risk croaking. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go fucking slow. And if a shot on a doe presents itself, I don't think I'm not going to get the camera out. I've just got to shoot it. Got to get one down on the ground. That's my plan. Well, that's what I said I'd do. It's a yearling. Really nice coat on it. Oh, it took me by surprise. They're just jogging out the gully. Mum went up that way. There was another two higher up which I couldn't see, but not bucks, but it was I did put 2 shots past her. As she was walking up, it was a bit of an angled shot. Anyway, I just cleaned her up with another just to be sure. Well, that's that bench I was talking about before. And I'm just going up this hill here, the rest of them went up there. This one's bolted over here. Oh. There she is. Just pulled her out of the bushes there where she piled up. But yeah, she's small, but she'll eat bloody well. Real snack pack. But look, perfect weight that I can carry over my shoulders. I'm gonna gut her out now, and I'll carry her back to camp. And that's a really nice coat on her too. So yeah, very stoked. Good Tasmanian fallow deer. Well, I'm gonna just keep a few more rounds in the magazine on the way back. May as well. Yeah, just making hay while the sun shines, but great animal to have at camp. That's something for us to enjoy over the next day or two. And if I get another one, I'll probably again drop the guts out of her and hang her off a tree just near one of the forestry tracks here. And when we come back up again from the camp, pick it up again. First 100 metres, and I think about 2 kilometres all up to go, but that last part is mostly downhill. Going down into the scrub now, and this should be a reasonably open little gully chute and drop me off right at the creek. Very good. Nearly there, down to the flats. Oh. Oh. There we go. Just packing up camp, and saw one feeding off a little face up there, just a doe, so yeah, I think I'll take her. I'll try and take her. Oh, I dropped her. Oh. Guess this was her path up last night. Haven't found her yet. It's the good thing about filming this kind of thing, is that you get to have a frame of reference. Oh, no, there she is. She's up there. Up there. Absolutely beautiful. So good. So it was one of those wood piles. And across the marsh up here, where she's at now. That's good. It was good. It was great to get one before we packed up and left. It's great. Well, I thought I'd just show her to you before I cut her up. Really nice. Gorgeous skin on her. That's just that emerging winter coat coming through, so it's nice and fluffy, but still got that really red colour. Yeah, it was a high shoulder shot. There it is. It comes out just about there, so she's on a little, not really an angle, but dropped her in one by the looks. Bloody good. Folks, this should absolutely be, like the humble fallow doe should be an absolute staple of Australian hunters. There's shit tons of them around, and folks, as you might see from some of the footage of numbers that I might put up in this video, like, we need to get the female populations down in these herds. That's the only way that farmers will keep letting people onto land. That's the only way that governments will think that public land can still be managed this way by hunting. They're like, this has got everything you need. You know, it's a perfect size that it can still be handled reasonably by one person if need be. But, you know, something like this would keep me going for months. That yearling I took yesterday, that'd be a good chunk of the year sorted for meat up until winter before I start getting into the sambar. Anyway, I'm going to drop the guts out of her, drag her down to camp, and then pack up that camp, get on with my day. Excellent. Now, the risk of blunting this knife, I'm going to through the brisket, esophagus out and everything. Oh, that's good. Oh, just let it cool down here. I'll work out a appropriate little exit spot. Doing the old drag this time. Softer ground. Now, if there was one thing I was so keen to capture on the lens whilst I was down there, was a pair of bucks fighting. Now, I did manage that, but I was lucky enough to meet a legend named Zane that was hunting the same patch of country that we were when we were down there. He shared this awesome footage that he got through his spotting scope and filmed it with his iPhone. Thanks so much for sharing that, man. Really appreciate it. Look at these bucks. It's just a wonder they don't kill each other.
There he is, yep, he's coming down. See him, Jess?
Yep, right below the tree. Tail up. Amazing. seriously special.
Well, mate, we haven't seen one up
Fucking
here.
oath.
I haven't seen one up here before, so this is the first time we've seen one.
Got a bit of footage of it?
I did. You know, the boys calling me over and I just got to, you know, it was far off, but it doesn't matter how far it is. To get eyes on a critter like that in the middle of the day, nothing else like it. That's so special. Folks, I've been fortunate to go to Tassie a couple of times now, and every time I feel like I've had the most incredible experience, yet I've barely even scratched the surface. I get that feeling like there's just a lifetime of adventure in Tasmania and just so many natural riches just waiting to be discovered. You know, but Tasmania doesn't give up its riches easily, and I think the most valuable things in this world are hard won. I went down there and tried my very best to be a waterfowl hunter. I failed miserably because I'm not very experienced. But you know what, last week I went down to Victoria, and with the help of a bloke named Troy, that all changed. So thanks for joining me on this journey, guys, and I really hope you can stay tuned till next time. Let's keep our good times natural. Respect.